totally natural thing, and it's like very, very healthy. And it's beautiful. Like you're out there looking at the mountains all around, and nature, little Tweety birds flying by while you're bathing. You're not sealed off in some little fiberglass.
G'day and welcome. This is the Hunting Republic podcast. The podcast where we discuss all things hunting and outdoors. So if you love hunting, camping, fishing, hiking, bushwalking, full driving, or just being in the outdoors, then we reckon you've come to the right place. My name is Luke. I will be your host, and I can't wait to have you along for the journey. So please enjoy this edition of the Hunting Republic podcast. G'day team, and welcome to the fourth episode of the Hunting Republic podcast. Today we sit down and we have a yarn with Scott and Jamie from Urban to Outland. If you aren't familiar with the lads, then go jump on over to their YouTube channel, check them out and have a watch. I've known Scott and Jamie for a considerable amount of time, and we've really been looking forward to sitting down, having a good yarn and recording this podcast for you guys. So we hope you enjoy the first part of what will be a two-part episode of edition 4, episode 4 of the Hunting Republic podcast. Welcome to the fourth episode of the Hunting Republic podcast. Today's been a bit of a rigmarole in the getting together, the lining up of all of the moons of Saturn and Venus and Mars, and everything else that's going on. But finally, I've been able to sit down and get a face to face with Scott and Jamie from Urban to Outland. So, welcome to the podcast, boys, and thanks for making the time.
Thanks for having us.
No worries. Thanks for having us. Yeah, it's been hopefully it'll be good.
Certainly will. I'm pretty sure we'll talk enough shit to keep people entertained, or at least amused.
That's it.
I'm sure.
So, it's been a bit of a while trying to organise and line up dates and times and everything, and so finally, it's really good to actually be able to sit down and have a yarn. We did try there like last week or the week before, or whatever it was, and technical issues were a bit of a drama for us. But
we got to look at each other for 2 hours on camera and actually record nothing.
Wave and make hand gestures because audio and video and stuff wasn't working properly, and recording wasn't working. But yeah, we think we've got something working today. So it should be good.
Fingers crossed.
Let's forge on. So there's the two of you boys there. So we'll take it in turns, and we'll start with you, Scott. So
okay.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your background in hunting and whatever else you feel like sharing.
I'm 45. I've been hunting pretty much all my life now. For as long as I can remember. Dad used to do a lot of pro shooting back in the day, more rifle. Never sort of got into the archery side of things until later in life. But his dad was also a shooter as well, so they did hunting. They used to hunt all the time. It was either hunting or camping, just being out in the outdoors. So I suppose that's where it's just in my blood, basically. Just grew up with it. And it wasn't until probably 14 or 15 or so, I reckon, that, got into archery. We saw it at one of those local fetes sort of thing. You go and, try a recurve and shoot into a hay bale or something like that.
Yep.
So we're both enjoying that. Well, had a few shots sort of thing. And I was like, oh, this is something I might want to do. So Dad's like, oh, if you want to do it, we'll do it properly. Join a club, learn how to do it properly, and then it's something we can both do. And then it just took off from there.
That's
so
awesome.
Probably 30-odd years, I reckon, been bow hunting. But, the actual hunting and outdoors is just, forever.
Yeah, fantastic. And what about you, Jamie?
41. Probably been hunting for, 13 or 14 years? Well, bow hunting, that is. Originally from Northern Territory, Darwin, so grew up in the outdoors there, majority doing fishing and stuff like that, because that's what my dad was into. He was also a pro shooter as well. We used to shoot, out of a helicopter for pet meat and stuff like that back in the day. And he used to shoot foxes and stuff growing up as a kid in South Wales. So pretty much didn't really do much hunting up there. It was all fishing, but moved to Victoria, and it's all not fishing, it's all hunting for me, because there's not as much fish, I don't think, to catch in Victoria as similar fish as the Territory. So, but yeah, I've been bow hunting for, as I said, about 12 years, I think. And Scott introduced me to that when we used to work together in a 4-drive shop. And he convinced me to buy my first bow, which was a Hoyt Tricon XL. And I just said, oh yeah, I'll grab this bow and, fling some arrows with it, and it'll be pretty straightforward and pretty easy to get into. And next thing you know, I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on all the gear, and I've never looked back. It's been awesome.
It's all Scott's fault.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, blame me.
Yeah.
I was going to say, what I love about that story, Jamie, or about that unfolding of events, is that you can never get in trouble with the missus. It's always Scott's fault.
Well, that's it. The problem is nowadays we bounce off each other with getting different gear.
No, we won't tell her that. We won't tell her that. It's always Scott's fault.
Yeah.
That's like when I get in trouble for spending too much time on social media, particularly Facebook. I'm saying to my wife, well, 2007, you signed me up. Literally, my username and password and everything. You signed up. It's your fault.
Yeah, that's it.
So, and for those listening at home, and you don't have to say anything about specifics about if you don't want to, but you guys actually work together now.
Yes, we were talking about that the other day, actually, saying, I wonder if he asked what we do. And,
it's a bit of a hard question.
That could be
answer.
Another whole podcast altogether.
Yes.
We could do a whole episode on just that.
Yeah. A lot of people would be interested to hear some of the stories we've got with what we do.
Yeah. I mean, it's no secret. It's not top secret, but, we transport prisoners all over the state of Victoria.
Yep. Yeah. And, you guys, I guess a little bit like myself with the boys at the station, you get joined at the hip a fair bit, and you're a pretty close team working in in some instances, I suppose, a bit of a pressurized environment.
Yeah. Did you want to answer that one?
It can be. You get some really good training. Majority of it is pretty safe. In what we do, we do interact a lot more with prisoners and stuff like that than what people realise, but with the proper training you're pretty safe, and where you go everyone's very professional at what they do, and you don't usually have issues, but 9 times out of 10 you're fine, but there is you're okay, but the one time sometimes it's can get out of hand and things like that, but you just get ready for it. And the good thing about Scott and I, we work together and pretty much all the time, and we also hunt together, so we know how each other thinks. So if something is going to go down, then it just takes one sort of look at Scott, or he looks at me, a weird way to say, hey, watch out, and you got each other's back, and it just works. It just works well. It's a good dynamic.
Yep, 100%. Know exactly what you mean. Yeah, that's awesome. And how long have you been doing that job together? You both in everything else that's going on, but finally, I've been able to sit down and get a face to face with Scott and Jamie from Urban to Outland. So, welcome to the podcast, boys, and thanks for making the time.
Thanks for having us.
No worries. Thanks for having us. Yeah, it's been hopefully it'll be good.
Certainly will. I'm pretty sure we'll talk enough shit to keep people entertained, or at least amused.
That's it.
I'm sure.
So, it's been a bit of a while trying to organise and line up dates and times and everything, and so finally it's really good to actually be able to sit down and have a yarn. We did try there like last week or the week before, or whatever it was, and technical issues were a bit of a drama for us. But
we got to look at each other for 2 hours on camera and actually record nothing.
Wave and make hand gestures because audio and video and stuff wasn't working properly, and recording wasn't working. But we think we've got something working today. So it should be good.
Fingers crossed.
Let's forge on. So there's the two of you boys there. So we'll take it in turns, and we'll start with you, Scott. So
okay.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your background in hunting and whatever else you feel like sharing.
I'm 45. I've been hunting pretty much all my life now. For as long as I can remember. Dad used to do a lot of pro shooting back in the day, more rifle. Never sort of got into the archery side of things until later in life. But his dad was also a shooter as well, so they did hunting. They used to hunt all the time. It was either hunting or camping, just being out in the outdoors. So I suppose that's where it's just in my blood, basically. Just grew up with it. And it wasn't until probably 14 or 15 or so, I reckon, that got into archery. We saw it at a local, one of those local fetes sort of thing. You go and, try a recurve and shoot into a hay bale or something like that.
Yep.
So we're both enjoying that. Well, had a few shots sort of thing, and I was like, oh, this is something I might want to do. So Dad's like, oh, if you want to do it, we'll do it properly. Join a club, learn how to do it properly, and then it's something we can both do. And then it just took off from there.
It's
so
awesome.
Probably 30-odd years, I reckon, been bow hunting, but the actual hunting and outdoors is just, forever.
Fantastic. And what about you, Jamie?
41. Probably been hunting for 13 or 14 years. Well, bow hunting, that is. Originally from Northern Territory, Darwin. So grew up in the outdoors there. Majority doing fishing and stuff like that because that's what my dad was into. He was also a pro shooter as well. We used to shoot, out of a helicopter for pet meat and stuff like that back in the day. And he used to shoot foxes and stuff growing up as a kid in South Wales. So pretty much didn't really do much hunting up there. It was all fishing, but moved to Victoria, and it's all not fishing, it's all hunting for me because there's not as much fish, I don't think, to catch in Victoria as similar fish as the Territory. So, I've been bow hunting for, as I said, about 12 years, I think. And Scott introduced me to that when we used to work together in a 4-drive shop. And he convinced me to buy my first bow, which was a Hoyt Tricon XL. And I just said, oh, yeah, I'll grab this bow and, fling some arrows with it. And it'd be pretty straightforward and pretty easy to get into. And next thing you know, I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on all the gear, and I've never looked back. It's been awesome.
It's all Scott's fault.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, blame me.
Yeah.
I was going to say what I love about that story, Jamie, or about that unfolding of events is that you can never get in trouble with the missus. It's always Scott's fault.
Well, that's it. The problem is nowadays we bounce off each other with getting different gear.
No, we won't tell her that. It's always Scott's fault.
Yeah.
That's like when I get in trouble for spending too much time on social media, particularly Facebook. I'm saying to my wife, well, 2007, you signed me up. Literally, my username and password and everything. You signed up. It's your fault.
Yeah, that's it.
So, and for those listening at home, and you don't have to say anything about specifics about if you don't want to, but you guys actually work together now.
Yes, we were talking about that the other day, actually, saying, I wonder if he asked what we do. And,
it's a bit of a hard question.
That could be another whole podcast altogether. Yes. We could do a whole episode on just that.
Yeah. A lot of people will be interested to hear some of the stories we've got with what we do.
Yeah. I mean, it's no secret. It's not top secret, but, we transport prisoners all over the state of Victoria.
Yep. Yeah. And, you guys, I guess a little bit like myself with the boys at the station, you get joined at the hip a fair bit, and you're a pretty close team working in, in some instances, I suppose, a bit of a pressurised environment.
Yeah,
did you want to answer that one?
It can be. You get some really good training. Majority of it is pretty safe. In what we do, we do interact a lot more with prisoners and stuff like that than what people realise, but with the proper training you're pretty safe, and where you go everyone's very professional at what they do, and you don't usually have issues, but 9 times out of 10 you're fine, but there is you're okay, but the one time sometimes it's can get out of hand and things like that, but you just get ready for it. And the good thing about Scott and I, we work together and pretty much all the time, and we also hunt together, so we know how each other thinks. So if something is going to go down, then it just takes one sort of look at Scott, or he looks at me a weird way to say, hey, watch out, and you got each other's back, and it just works. It just works well. It's a good dynamic.
Yep, 100%. Know exactly what you mean. Yeah, that's awesome. And how long have you been doing that job together? Did you both sort of start at the same time, or how did that pan out?
Well, I mean, we originally come from the forward drive industry. We used to work in different retail shops, basically. Jamie was for ARB, and I was working for an independent store that sold, various different forward drive accessories and so forth. We had the workshop out the back. So, I mean, previous to this, I'd done that for about 8 years or so.
Yeah, wow.
And the business that I was with, it was sort of, I don't know, it was getting a bit stale for me anyway, and too much pressure. So where Jamie was working at ARB, I'd only spoken to Jamie over the phone, just, have you got a winch I can buy, or do you want some roof racks? We used to buy and sell stuff to each other a bit here and there. Yeah, and then there was an opening come up where he worked, so I jumped on board with them, and I was with ARB for 2 years. And I just got burnt out on 10 years in that industry. It just was too much.
Yep.
Just the sales pressures and trying to meet demands, and it was just too much.
The telephone constantly ringing off the hook, just flat out. Does your head in.
The phone was permanently glued to the side of your ear sometimes, and you just go home and you're just like, what the hell happened today? It was just a nightmare. So, I sort of got onto this job through the father-in-law, which that's sort of another side story anyway. But got onto this job and thought, oh, what the hell? It's way out of my comfort zone. Nothing I've ever done before. Hadn't even thought of this as an actual job sort of thing. So, jumped on board. So I've been doing that for 10 years now. And then I kept going in because when I originally started, we used to have pretty much an RDO every week or every fortnight or something like that. And I just pop in and say good day to Jamie, and he's like, "What do you got another day off?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread." Just kicking back and doing this and doing that. He's like, "Oh man, how do I get on board?" So sort of in a couple of years' time, there was another course run, and I sort of put in a good word, and Jamie's like, "Hey, bugger, I'm going to apply," and here we are.
Yeah, 8 years I've been there now.
And then he turned up, and they're like, "You vouch for this bloke?"
That's it. That's it. Exactly right.
So, if you don't mind me asking, is it private industry or is it government based?
We work for a private company.
Yeah. Okay.
But we're contracted to Victoria Police and Corrections Victoria as well. So it's just a private company.
Yeah, cool. And how does the swinging it back around to the hunting side of things? How do the RDAs work these days? Are they any better or any worse?
We don't get as many as we used to because they did change the roster during COVID. It really threw a spanner in the works in what we could do and what we couldn't, where we could travel to and stuff like that. But we were still doing our job as per normal, but its shifts were just all over the place. So when they ended up changing the roster, we less RDOs, and we used to actually get 4-day long weekends pretty much, sort of all the time, and we used to plan weekends away and stuff like that.
Yep.
But when that all changed, it was maybe one RDO every 6 weeks or something. Now it's crazy like that. So we don't get to go out as much as we used to, which kind of sucks. But it is what it is. Yep. You just got to make it work as best as you can.
And we're fortunate today at 3:00 in the afternoon on a Wednesday. Yep. We've obviously got an RDO.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, well, that's it exactly.
And it's lined up well with my long service leave and heading out of the country tomorrow. So we're making this happen before I go.
Half your luck.
Finally.
yeah, that's it.
So, you obviously you got into the hunting. Was that during your ARB sort of 4 drive time, or was that during working together in this job?
No, we were hunting before this job as well. As I said, Scott was working where he was in the other 4 drive shop, and I was always talking about fishing and stuff. And Scott wasn't really interested in fishing, because he's not really much of a fisherman and stuff. But
catching's better, isn't it, Scotty? You don't go
fishing,
that's it.
Catch some deers. And so when he came across to us, he was just like, "Oh, this hunting, stuff," and I knew a bit about it. And then pretty much it was just like, "Oh, you should try this," and he was showing me pictures of when he went, hunting in Africa and all sorts of stuff. And I was just, that's the life for me. Really, it was just something inside me. It was just like, this seems to be better than fishing. I mean, I'd done a lot of it, like fishing and a little bit of hunting, but not much. But I think this was the key, for me to start. And and ever since then, it's just been like, we're going to go hunting. Yep, no worries. And I used to bounce off Scott and Scott's dad for information on, bow hunting and stuff. And they pretty much just guided me through. Warren from Oz Bow Press, he's been a massive help. He's like a mad scientist and the knower of all knowledge as far as technical stuff goes. And with their guidance, it just pushed me in the right direction, and off I go. And I still hunt with guns, probably more so nowadays because I've got a sore shoulder. But when that gets better, it's going to be back on the bow for sure.
Yep. And you guys being blessed Mexicans south of the border, you get to access a lot of public land for hunting. Is that the majority of your hunting on public lands, or do you have much private property access as well?
Majority of it is public land. To be honest, I mean, plenty of times we're like, "Oh man, I wish we had private property access," because public land is just shit basically a lot of the time. Unless you can find those sort of little honey holes, and it takes you months and months and months to find one, and then you get 4-wheel drivers or horseback riders or motorbike riders tear ass and through, and it makes it pretty difficult. But but we are lucky, I guess, in the sense because you can only hunt on private property, can't you, up your way?
Yeah, that's it.
So, yeah, I mean, a lot of the property we do have a lot of state forest access down here, so you can only hunt in state forest.
Yep.
Which the government is tightening that and restricting it more and more, turning it into, reclassifying it into national park areas and so forth, so nobody can get access.
So you can't hunt national park? I thought you could in Victoria. Okay.
No.
You can hunt. Is it national park in the high country for sambar deer?
Alpine National Park, certain times of the year, yes. That's probably the only one that you can hunt in.
But even then, you can't hunt pest animals. It's just sambar deer. Game species. Yeah,
which is crazy because you come across a mob of pigs or something like that in the high country, and you're technically not allowed to shoot them, but they're a feral game animal. It's a feral species, so it's a bit strange.
Not surprising though that it's something like that crop up, and it's a stupid rule or dumb law.
Oh, exactly.
Yep.
But yeah, majority of it is public land. We did put a lot of time and effort into find sort of a good little hunting spot, I suppose, for fallow deer.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of a few hours drive from where we are in Geelong. But we have gained some access to private property, which has been good. And that's for fallow deer mainly. There's foxes and so forth on their properties, but there's like a group of 3 or 4 properties that are sort of all side by side. And some of the deer are getting in and causing dramas for the property owners, damaging fences and eating up gardens and so forth. So they want to try and get rid of some, and that's why a couple of our last videos have just been in that area, just with the rifles, because it's purely more of a eradication sort of a process for them.
They're breeding up so much in the area that it's not too far away from a bit of a tourist drive as well, and you're getting dangerously close to cars, at night. There's so many kangaroos down there as well, but it's not as many deer, but the deer are just all over the road and stuff like that at night. So that was one of the things that they were big on telling us, was saying that, nearly hit a deer this morning and so on and so forth. So it's, as much as it sounds like, it's just pest eradication off, just for their gardens and that, there is a greater sort of, purpose as well, which is, trying to get rid of some of them out, to make the roads safer in that area, because no one is doing anything about it in that area, like as far as trying to, get rid of them, control the population in the area. Yeah.
Yep. So I guess it's the perfect storm where you have the opportunity to help genuinely help, rather than just hunters are helping with pest control. You're genuinely helping, and A, you get to hunt, and B, you get meat. So that's a win-win for you guys.
Well, that's the bonus for us. Exactly right. Yeah, nothing ever goes to waste. That's for sure. Mm-hmm.
And is the property owner down there, like they're keen on the bit of meat? Do you share that with them, or they're not interested, or what's their disposition to that?
Look, a couple of them aren't interested at all. We did offer it, as you do. I mean, just getting access, you try and do all the right things.
For sure.
Oh shit! If we get something, do you want some meat in it? Oh no, you can have that. No, I don't want to touch it. Whereas one of the other blokes, he's keen on. So we gave him, I think we gave him a few kilo of meat, some various different cuts and mince and so forth, and sausages and that not long ago. So I think he was going to have a bit of a feast cook up. Yeah, just the other week, I think.
Yeah, nice. So before we move on to you mentioned your videos and your recordings and stuff, let's roll the clock back. Scotty, what was your first kill, mate?
My first kill was a rabbit at 30 meters in the spotlight.
Rabbit, and so that's when you're a younger attacker with the rifle.
No, my first kill. Oh, sorry, that was with my bow. Sorry, that was my first.
That's all right.
Kill.
That's all right. Yeah.
My first. It would have been a rabbit. I don't think I ever shot anything else other than rabbits with the rifle when we used to go out with Dad. He used to do a lot of professional shooting for roos and goats and so forth up New South Wales. But I think it was probably a rabbit. That's all I'd really hunted, to be honest. Yeah, probably rabbit.
Yep. So with the bow and with the gun. And how old were you for each of those? You reckon?
I couldn't tell you with the rifle. I would have, at a guess, maybe, I don't know, 8 or 9 or something like that, 10 with the rifle maybe. As I said, I sort of grew up with it all, so I would have been around then, and I was probably 15 or something like that, 15 or 16 maybe with the bow.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what about you, Jamie?
First bow kill was a goat. It's actually on video. One of our first early videos on YouTube, it was a goat. And with the bow, and then first rifle kill I think was a rabbit with a 22. I think that was I don't know. Rifle hunting for me is it's not as memorable as bow hunting, so I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it was either a rabbit or I'm going to say a rabbit. I can't remember. I think it was a rabbit.
Yeah, nice. And you what about, like, was your, now you're gonna have to forgive me because I obviously haven't seen this episode, but was your first goat kill there, Jamie, was it with Scotty, with the video and recording in that regard? Or?
Yeah, it was back in the early days of our sort of channel before we had good camera gear, so we're using the older sort of stuff. I mean, it wasn't bad, but it was good for back in the day. But we were at near Tamworth up there, and we went on a week-long trip. There was a group of us. I think the video is called is it Hunting the Great Dividing Range or something like that? And
that's right.
Yeah, that was actually I'd got into bow hunting, and then this was my first serious trip away, and hunting with the boys and going after some actual decent game animals and stuff like that. And the property had pigs, deer, goats. It had rabbits. It had all sorts of stuff, foxes.
Yeah,
pretty much just go for it. And so that was the first thing I shot. It's on a video. It's just like a smaller white billy goat, and it was, I think it was about 30 meters I took the shot, and I was using the Hoyt Tricon with a 2-blade tusk, I think it was tusk broadhead. And it was a pretty actually no, the shot was a pass through, and I lost the arrow, and it hit a log behind it and took off into the distance that I never saw the arrow again. So as you do, but you remember those little finer details. But and it's on there. But I actually had a pretty good trip that week. I got 2 goats, a pig, and a fallow doe, my first fallow deer as well.
Fantastic.
So that's on there. And that was awesome.
That's unreal for a first, a trip chasing larger game. And I mean, Tamworth's a pretty golden area for variation too, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, certainly for your fallow deers, a lot of guys go there when the bucks are croaking for fallow every year around the Tamworth area.
Was actually the video itself. It shows a bit of deer sort of activity, that we saw. We tried. This is our first time rattling as well. We took the antlers down, and we'd seen other people hunting deer using rattles and calls and things like that. And it's actually part of it where I was so green that, and this is actually before I shot my goat as well, that we actually rattled one in, and I was standing next to a tree, and probably 30 meters in front of Scott, and he was behind another shrub, and we saw this buck running down a hill. He was actually just smashing up a tree in the distance, and we thought, we'll give it a rattle and we'll see what happens. And here's me being a hero. I'm like, I'll go stand over here, and you call it in, like rattle it in, and he did, and it came running into, I think, about 18 meters, and I just got buck fever so much, my legs were shaking, I couldn't draw my bow back at all. I just looked like an idiot standing in front of the tree for about 20 seconds, and then it just had one look at me and was like, something's wrong here, and then it just took off. So, and I was just like, whoa, that was weird. I didn't even know what that was, buck fever at the time.
Yeah,
we didn't even know what we were doing really then, to be honest. We were like, let's just try rattling these antlers together.
Shit actually works. Let's give it a go.
Yeah, and it was like, shit, there it is. What just happened? It was like, oh man, why didn't you shoot it, Jamie? I'm like, I don't know. I couldn't draw my bow back. My arms, my legs just were shaking. Arms just didn't work.
Adrenaline overdrive.
So yeah. Anyways.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. And but apart from the buck fever as such, you'd whacked your goat and that before, and the pigs.
No, that was before any of that. So we went out, and then I was kind of like, that's what happened here. It was funny because I got buck fever there and didn't have that shot, and then we had a chance to have a shot at some goats afterwards, and again, sort of buck fever a bit. I climbed up on a bit of a log to shoot downwards. It was a bit of a steep. It was in the bottom of a creek bed. It was only 5 meters below me or something. And I shot down, but the arrow hit a log and skimmed off the log, and it didn't get the animal. So there's a bit of a learning curve there to be had. But then, once you learn from all that sort of stuff, and then ever since, from then on, it was just, you tend to think about the shots a bit more, and you learn from it. And then, yeah, I was getting some decent animals on the ground after that. So, but a lot of that is on that video as well. So if people did want to watch it, it's on there. It's one of our earlier ones.
All right, so it's timely then to let's go straight to the chase. So tell us about your YouTube channel, boys.
You guys got.
I think it was a nod to you, Scotty.
Yeah, that looked like it. Eh? The YouTube channels. I mean, we've been filming. I've been videoing some of my hunts and just outdoor adventures and stuff like that for years, just for my own personal just enjoyment, I suppose, just to replay those memories and so forth, and share them with the mates and that go along with it, go along with your hunts and so forth. So it's not sort of new to me as such, but when Jamie and I started to obviously get together and hunt a lot more together, there's probably. How long's the YouTube channel's been going for? Maybe 3 or 4 years now, I suppose.
I think a little bit longer than that because it was well before COVID. So, yeah.
Oh, maybe say 5 years or so, maybe.
Yeah, yep.
But, we'd sort of always talked about it. We're like, well, other people do it. We're already videoing some of our hunts and just making up our own, DVDs and slideshows and stuff at home. So,
nice.
Why not do it? So, I think we were actually going for a big long country drive for work at one stage, and because I think I've still got the notebook at home here floating around. We're like just coming up with all these ideas, just brainstorming. What could be called? What's good names that we can sort of come up with? And we just sort of settled eventually on Urban to Outland.
Yep.
And it doesn't really have any meaning or significance or anything. It was just kind of like two words that mashed together, and it was like, oh, that works.
Oh, I mean, it does though too, because you guys live, you should say, in the urban environment.
We live in suburbia, and
where do you hunt?
Our passion is in the outdoors. So
outdoors,
and there's two of us. That's why we got the number 2, I suppose. So, I mean, in the YouTube side of things, we're just not even a drop in the ocean, really, in comparison to some of the other big hunting channels and that out there. But and we're just doing it. We just enjoy it. Yep, we just enjoy sharing our stories and sharing the videos. If people like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't.
100%. And like, mate, that's 100% what this podcast is about. Like it's a passion, and people who've listened along so far or heard me speak on other podcasts more recently, that it's driven by your passion for the pastime. And if we want to, we're engaging in something we derive a bit of satisfaction and joy from, and we can share like this conversation with other people, and they feel like that that kills 10 minutes or 2 hours in their day, and maybe learn from it or get some sort of entertainment out of it, a bit of a laugh or a joke here and there or whatever, then hey, it's good shit, right?
Yeah, that's it, 100%.
And on top of all of that, or you could say underpinning all of that, or whatever way you paint it, the voice for the pastime, and having content out there that illustrates everything that we're about in the positive, constructive light, and people can point to or refer to as hopefully good examples of responsible people in the pastime, when we know that quite often we're up against the wall with that sort of stuff sometimes.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, all our videos, we try really hard to portray it in the best possible light, just get the right angles, and even your photos and stuff like that. You see it plenty of times still on Facebook, and that people posting up pictures. They're proud of the animal that they've shot with a bow, for instance, but it's still got the arrow sticking out of it, and we don't want to condone that or be seen doing that. It's just ammo for the antis, unfortunately. So any of that, even just cleaning up bits of blood off the skin or something like that before you pose it for a photo, and it's just the little things like that can go a long way. Just respect for the animal, I think that's what a lot of 100%. It comes down to as well.
Yep. I mean, that's it. Like if you think about, I don't know, having a photo with your kids at the end of a family dinner or something where the cousins are about or whatever, if your kid's got their face covered in chocolate sauce from dessert, you're going to wipe it off,
That's right. Yeah.
You're going to clean them up, and realistically you think, well, I can pay half that respect to something's life that I've just taken and clean it up and make it look like it was represented in the scrub, and it's, I don't know, it's a bit overkill of the term, but in all its glory, be it a humble, a yearling size animal for meat, or a massive buck or stag in trophy, 7x7 red or something like that. Mm-hmm. You sort of think the least I can do to respect it in what it was in its true form is to clean it up and make it presentable, you know.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's good. And I love the way you guys do that in your videos and everything, and the commentary that comes along with it. Really, and I've got to like say for one of your most recent ones, Jamie, when you took the kids out.
Yep.
That was fantastic. I really enjoyed that episode, that video. Right? It was really good.
Was that the one where, like the last video, one of the last videos that we did, where it was the fallow? Was it the fallow one or?
Yeah.
Yep.
You got Was it the two or you? Yeah. No. Was that with your dad? But yeah, I think it was one. Was your daughter's first time out?
Yeah. No, that was my daughter's second time out, and then my son's first. Yeah, that was that time. Yeah. That shot wasn't the best shot. So I liked it because it was a good little adventure, but it wasn't my best shot that I'd taken because it was a little bit of a gut shot, and I had to sort of follow it up. But I mean that happens in hunting as well, and that's part of the education process. But with these properties that we've been getting on, I'm using this property as a perfect sort of safe environment to teach the kids as much as I possibly can, to do with, wind direction and tracking and sound and things like that. And it's working. It's working perfectly in a safe environment because there's no other hunters in the area that can take random shots, things like that that might be, dangerous to the kids as well. So, but yeah, they're loving it, and I'm just, whenever I try to go and I get a chance to take them, I'll take them as well. So my daughter's more of she's older than my son anyway, but she's more into hunting than him at the moment, and she's got her own PSC bow, and she gets in the backyard and she practices as well. She's been going hunting with me since she's 5 or 6 or something. So it's nothing new to her as far as hunting and seeing the gutting an animal and things like that. So, but my son's he's got his head switched on now. He knows what's happening, and and I deliberately let them search the blood trail as well, just to show them what it was like.
That's awesome.
And they got excited about it. That's the most the most fun they had for a while. Was like, oh, we love the blood trail, and I'm thinking, I don't like a blood trail. I want to see it. I just want to see the animal. I don't want to be doing this, but that's part of it. So, and they loved it. And
that's fantastic.
I just think we need to see more of it out there. If we can put it out there, in a good light, and other people do the same, it doesn't have to be deer hunting. It can just be anything outdoors, really. You don't even have to go hunting. Just track an animal. If you see some fox prints on the ground somewhere or whatever, just try and follow it up and just see what comes up with. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. A couple of things fall out of the same sort of conversation, I suppose. And one is, remembering, and again, for that, we haven't really touched on it yet, but those people listening along, these two lads have been involved in the bow hunting forums for many years, so we sort of go a fair way back with that side of stuff too. And I don't know, Scotty, you could probably remember way back to the very early days where Alan Kidner was posting on the forums a bit, and I think he wrote up a story. He was talking about his son. Now, his son is now, a grown man. He's actually in the army. And I think it was in the story, he basically said, like to his young fella, I'll take you hunting when you can sit at the dining room table and your feet touch the floor. You're sitting on the chair, you're backed up straight, all that sort of stuff, whatever. But that's when I'll take you out to actually properly hunt. Yeah. Just as a judge of sort of a coming of age, I suppose, or a maturity or a rite of passage type situation, and I've always remembered that as a sort of an entry, like that rite of passage into coming out with dad or mum or whoever, but just that now is your time, and it's just that thing that's always stuck with me for 20 plus years now. But the other side of it too, the giving the kids involvement, not just tagging along, and you're saying that, involving them in the blood trailing, Jamie, I think that's fantastic.
Yep. I remember when they said that, I want to go and, I want to go and look for the blood as well, because I was in front of them, to begin with, and I was like, shh, be quiet. It could be bedded under a tree over there. I could see it where it was, most of the time. But, just telling them, no, don't just go charging in after the blood droplets or whatever. And they took really well to that, and it's kind of like it was ingrained in their mind and in their brain, just automatically how to do it.
Yeah.
They knew that they were trying to creep up on something, they didn't want to bump it or push it along or anything like that, and they did really well, and they bounced off each other and they talked about it, and and eventually, obviously, we found the animal and where it was and took another shot and it was it, and then the little, or what I call the little serial killers, come out in them because they're not scared of it. Do you know what I mean? That they're happy to carry out a leg or a head or something like that. Originally they're a bit yucky, but then as soon as they realise, this is where meat comes from and this is how it all works, and we all just work to get the job done, and it works. So yeah,
and I think that speaks to the raw acceptance of kids to reality. And a whole lot of the time, I think the bullshit that gets attached to stereotypes isn't the word I'm looking for, but just certain things in life. It comes from the hang-ups adults have, whereas kids just look at it stuff. They assess it on face value. They take people and friends on face value. Like the way you see young kids interacting in the playground or in the park or whatever. Like straight up, they don't have any hang-ups about who are you, where have you come from, whatever. They're just like, oh, cool. What's your name? My name's Billy. Cool, let's play, Billy. And that's just the way they go. And like it's just that acceptance of, I think, the reality that's in front of them, that when they're younger is part and parcel of that environment. Like, this is what has happened. This is where the meat comes from. And I think unless they're, I don't want to say polluted, but unless they've had some sort of influence to cause them to think that it is, like you said, gross, disgusting or whatever, then they just accept it on face value and go, you know what? We know that in the past, Dad's gone out, he's gone hunting, he's harvested an animal of some kind, and what we know is he's come home and we're eating it as meat.
Yeah.
This is just the next part of that acceptance of what that happens,
Exactly, yeah. What I would probably suggest, that if people are looking at trying to get their kids into it, to begin with, obviously take them out so they can, especially with a rifle, put them earmuffs on, whatever, just so they can get used to the loud bang to begin with, and not be scared of that. Because that was one thing that I had to, with rabbit shooting, because we used to go with 22s to begin with. I'm just getting them used to me shooting a rifle around them, with whatever, and then I would go up to my 223 and I'd hear how loud that is, and then obviously the 308. But then when I would get an animal, I wouldn't be forcing them to stand there and hold the lungs of a deer, or I'm gutting it. Here you go. Here's the stomach contents. Put that in your hands for fun. I would never do anything like that if they couldn't. If they didn't look like they were enjoying it, I wouldn't force it on them. And I think that's 100%. A big thing. Not only with kids, it could be anyone. If someone's just looking at getting into hunting and then they want to be involved with it more, and they don't look like they're enjoying the gutting side of it, just go, stand over there away, and I'll just do what I've got to do over here, and then you can come back when you're ready or whatever. And I found that was a big thing. So as a video I did with my daughter, her first rabbit hunting, like we shot a couple of rabbits in the morning. It was winter's morning, it was just cold, something to do, and oh, my camera's just spazzed out.
Ooh,
anyway, I don't know. And so basically went out and then shot the rabbit, and I was gutting it, and she couldn't really handle it to begin with. So, and I just didn't force it or anything. And then she just eventually she made her own way over when she was ready, and then and got used to it. And then she ended up carrying the rabbit all the way back to the car. So yeah, I didn't force her, and she accepted it as it was, and then now she just loves it. So if anyone else is going to look at doing it, just don't force them. They'll eventually come into their own if they're going to want to do it. So yeah.
100%, mate. Is that what Scotty had to do with you? Like, go stand over there. I can see you don't like gutting an animal.
No, well, I learned a lot, on that hunting trip in near Tamworth, that's for sure, because I'd done a lot of, like, as I said, fishing stuff, that was nothing new to me, gutting an animal or whatever, but, a land animal is different to a sea animal, so, but yeah, I just sort of got in and got it done because it was, but it's a huge learning curve. Like, they taught me so much to do with, looking at how to, as Scott was saying earlier, even just to taking a picture of an animal, if the arrow's gone in one side here, or a bullet's gone in there, and the exit hole's, pretty bloody or whatever, just pick up a handful of dirt and rub it on it, so it just looks like a dirty patch on the animal. It doesn't look like a bloody thing. I would never have thought of that. It was those guys that taught me that. So, yeah, it's just part of the learning curve.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I'll happily say myself, I think I picked up those sort of, I guess you could call them etiquettes of game or trophy or animal presentation, from other guys back in the forum days too. When I started that and putting stuff up on the internet. I think we're all pretty raw to it way back then because it was brand new. What we were doing was it, and those sharing of people's approaches or opinions and saying, hey guys, when I have this situation or the animal looks like this or whatever, I do this and I'll turn it this way, and if you think about photographing it from there, it looks better or different, or it's more presentable or more respectful or whatever, and that's something I really don't sort of see talked about much these days, and I don't know that it sort of gets passed on as much.
Yeah, I think the same. As I said, I would never have even thought of that, but now it just becomes we make sure that we try and angle it better so it does look good, and not so much for the content side of things. We just don't want the antis to come and use that as any weaponry against us, and let's face it, things go wrong in hunting as far as where a shot might hit or how it would land, and they might land on the ground with their tongue hanging out, and that doesn't look good for people. But if you can angle it and make it look a bit more presentable, then that's what we try to do, and I'm trying to pass that same information on to my kids as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, like on those lines, have you guys, through your channel or everything, have you had any anti-hunting doozies that you've suffered?
Oh, we've had a couple. We get a few, or we get criticised a little bit for not having kill shots. It's like, you've shot 20 pigs, but I only saw 3 get shot, and it's like, well, it's not all about capturing the actual shot on camera for us. It's more the hunt. It's more taking you on that experience and on that adventure with us. Not, if we can get the shot on camera, then perfect. But if we can't, then, that's just how it is. But we've had, people, with death threats, and I've had death threats on just normal social media anyway, just on pictures that I've posted up, or I've liked somebody's, somebody shot I don't know, like a impala or antelope or something in Africa, and on one of the places that I had hunted over there, and said, oh yeah, awesome job, good looking buck sort of thing. And someone's like, oh, your head would look better on the wall. I hope your family's, raped and murdered. They just go off, like they're just extremists, unfortunately. So we have had a few comments like that on YouTube.
They want to condone killing humans, but they don't condone killing an animal. That absolutely, it dead set every time I see anything like that, it blows my mind. Like,
I know.
You're so much better than me because you don't condone killing animals, but you want to murder someone. Like.
I know. Yeah. So we have had a few random comments like that on YouTube. We just ignore them. We look at them and like, oh, okay, whatever. Just some uneducated idiot that wants to, be a keyboard warrior. So you just block them and move on type of thing. So try not to let it get to you too much.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we've all been in the pastime long enough and exposed to bits and pieces on social media long enough now that we know that just is the reality of the way you deal with those people. Just
that's it.
Check that box, move on. Like engaging is pointless. And realistically, stuff like that only shows how small-minded they are. And I spoke on the last episode with Jay, the same sort of thing. And, he, basically, the fact that there's so much else in the world now that you go back 20 years ago was not acceptable, but people have come around and just go, okay, well, I hate the saying, you do you. But, with a whole lot of stuff, if it's not, directly harming somebody else, then it's a true saying, it's a fair saying, it's a reasonable saying. But it seems that there's a whole lot of forced tolerance with a whole lot of other stuff in the world at the moment. But we sort of seems to be okay to target us for participating in ethical, humane, legal pastimes, and I just call out that bullshit every time. It's rubbish.
I know. Yeah. Unfortunately, society's just getting worse in that regard.
And there endeth part 1 of episode 4 of the Hunting Republic podcast. Unfortunately, we had a gremlin creep into our recording at this point in time, and we lost Jamie. He disappeared into the nether. We could hear him, but just for whatever reason was not being recorded. So look, unfortunately, or fortunately, as it turns out, we continued. We actually chatted for another good hour or so, but we were unawares that we'd had this gremlin crop up. So the conversation was good, and we actually thoroughly enjoyed it. But we were missing 1/3 of the crew, so that's where we've sort of pulled up stumps for this portion of this episode. But never fear, we will have the boys back on. So if you haven't come across the Urban to Outland boys, Scotty and Jamie, have a look at their YouTube channel, Urban to Outland. That's with a letter 2, Urban UBAN 2 and Outland. And they are also on Facebook and YouTube. They put out some really good quality content, and certainly worth your while checking out, having a look. A couple of top lads giving it a crack and bringing you along for the ride. So yes, look them up and sit back and enjoy some quality content from them. So we hope you enjoyed this episode, even though we had to cut it short. But as I said, we're definitely looking forward to bringing you part 2 of this episode later on down the track. I'm wrapping this up right now at 11:58 on Wednesday the 20th of the 9th, because on Wednesday the 21st I'm actually flying out to Canada and leaving for that flight in the wee early hours. I should be up at about about 3-4 o'clock. So I'm wrapping this up here. I'm saying farewell for now for this episode, and I'm looking forward to bringing you some from on the road, let's just say. Got a few things that are going to be in the pipeline, and I hope you will tune in. So hit that subscribe button, like, follow, share, do all those things to help get word out about the Hunting Republic podcast, and stay keen, stay safe, and please stay in touch. All right, thanks again. See ya. Thanks for tuning in to the Hunting Republic podcast. Catch you later.